How many games have been resurrected from a 22-year hiatus recently? And I don't just mean an old game getting a remaster, no, I mean a completely new entry. Well, it's not many. Yet the reboot of Commandos has gone under the radar for most. Commandos is a stealth-based real-time tactics series with the last entry, Commandos 3, hailing from 2006. The core gameplay involves navigating intricate isometric maps within a World War II setting through the lens of 6 characters. These characters comprise the commando units you'll be controlling, each sporting unique abilities to get through their covert missions. As the name suggests, Commandos Origins tells the origin story of this elite force of operatives. Right off the bat, I was struck by how much biome diversity the team at Claymore managed to squeeze out of the tried and true World War II setting. Far from just your generic Normandy trenches, Commandos Origins spans the globe. The visual distinction from mission to mission is stark and appreciated. And there's a lot of missions to chew through here, 14 to be exact. This is a notable jump up in content from the 10 missions from Commandos 2 and 12 from Commandos 3. But it's really the quality of said missions that really matters. And in this, Commandos Origins does not disappoint. Each map provides numerous ways to accomplish your objectives. Want to go in guns blazing? Well, you can shoot up the place if you can manage to avoid alarms and reinforcements. It's also possible to go the pacifist route and avoid conflict altogether, though this might be even more difficult than the Rambo method. Most players will find themselves somewhere in the middle between those two extremes, avoiding patrols that are out of the way and stealth-killing soldiers one at a time to avoid setting off alarms. The game's wide map design accommodates either, and both, of these playstyles well, providing plenty of tools and equipment for commandos to take advantage of along the way. There's even some incentive to explore and comb every inch of maps with a handful of collectibles in each mission. Obtaining these collectibles provides a nice side challenge in and of itself due to their being tucked away in soldiers' bunkers and other heavily patrolled areas off of the beaten path. Managing to grab these secrets won't grant any gameplay boons or anything, but they do provide some historic text and images of things like Willie's Jeep and its usage in World War II, for instance. Additionally, there are side objectives which add even more replayability and challenge. The nitty-gritty of how you interact with these maps is quite another matter. As expected, the isometric camera from previous games returns, except it's fully controllable this time around instead of the limited rotation controls from Commandos 3. You can zoom in and out and fully rotate the cam here. The UI on consoles is rather minimalistic. All your tools and weapons are found on a hotkey menu using right trigger, as are your units and orders using left trigger. The team did a fine job avoiding a clustered and overwhelming UI, just showing unit portraits and tool graphics in the upper corners, with a minimap chilling in the bottom right. Players will find console controls quite streamlined and intuitive for the most part, though toggling and interacting with view cones is a tad bit clunky. Since this is such a stealth-oriented game, knowing an enemy's line of sight is crucial, and that's where view cones come in. Unfortunately, you can't just toggle all enemy view cones in the immediate area on. You have to either set a view cone marker or select enemy cones individually. I like the idea of setting a view cone in a dedicated spot, but it's too small to be useful. Also, enemies patrol and move in and out of zones often, invalidating the usefulness of most view cone markers. Highlighting individual enemy view cones isn't much better since it can be finicky aiming at the individual you want when they're in groups. The more imprecise nature of a control stick just doesn't compare to the fine pinpoint accuracy of a mouse in this particular regard. Another issue that I had with the view cones is how inconsistent they are at times. There have been moments when I was clearly outside the view cone when all of a sudden the enemy starts gunning me down without warning. What's the point of view cones if they're not 100% reliable? Yes, there are other variables at play that override view cones. If you make a noise or enemies see footprints, enemies will be alerted to your presence, and there's even a visual indicator of noise made. As a result, I found myself mistrusting view cones throughout my playthrough, which kinda defeats the purpose of such a mechanic. That said, the view cone system is visually distinct and wonderfully implemented most of the time. You can tell at a glance if an enemy sees you depending on whether you're crouched or standing thanks to solid and striped view cones. And speaking of visual distinction, you can highlight interactable aspects of the environment and tell enemies from comrades with a highlight mode toggle. I highly recommend turning manual toggle on since the countdown duration options seem to be bugged at the moment, often leaving everything highlighted until a cutscene or combat occurs. Of course, by now you may be asking yourselves why Commandos is labeled as a real-time tactics game despite its actionable stealth gameplay. Well, the answer lies with command mode. This tactical mode can be initiated at any time and will pause all gameplay, allowing you to set up movement and commands for your squad to then perform. Command mode isn't forced upon the player, but it is often helpful when simultaneous controls of units is needed. Another option is to play with another player via two-player co-op, and co-op can be done online or split screen. The meat and potatoes of the Commandos series lies in the tools each of your unit wields. You take control of 6 distinct commando units throughout the game, each with their own skill set and playstyle. While all commandos share certain abilities, like using medkits or knocking out opponents, certain abilities like setting bear traps are unique to a particular unit. I found the broad toolkit to be satisfying and open-ended. Your green beret can set a sound decoy, or you can just whistle with the sapper to accomplish a similar, though slightly altered outcome. What's more impressive is how each mission has unique abilities for each of the commandos based on the distinct properties of the environment. For example, the mission in the Arctic Circle has some communication lines with poles between them. The Green Beret can shimmy up and climb across the various poles, allowing quicker access without being seen. Just because you've seen all of one unit's abilities doesn't mean a mission won't introduce a new way to interact with that environment. For longtime Commandos fans, it's worth pointing out that enemies don't have inventory here. They drop single items like medkits, if anything at all. This makes Commandos Origins more streamlined, eliminating some of the inventory management the classic games had. Something this does share with those classics is difficulty. Even on the easiest of the 3 difficulty settings, Commandos Origins has a steep learning curve that brutally punishes mistakes. You'll find yourself getting caught and dying often. This brings up load times. Load times may not be egregious on PS5, but they do take a while compared to similar games on the console. I wish the load times were shorter, if not instantaneous, since they occur quite often considering the difficulty of this game. This then leads to several technical issues that I continue to encounter in the game. Some of the more egregious glitches were corrected with a patch. Unfortunately, persistent screen tearing continues to plague Commandos Origins. Whether you're playing on graphics or performance mode, rotating the camera up and down results in noticeable screen tearing. And I wouldn't recommend playing on graphics mode, by the way. The frame rate and screen tearing issues are way too persistent. Another issue I had occurred within the save menus. For example, looking through autosave scrolls up and down wildly, at times leading to a soft lock situation. On the gameplay side of things, I encountered a couple of invisible walls preventing me from hiding in time, leading to an early death or two. These invisible walls could have something to do with the vertical terrain they tried to implement. But with no way to measure terrain height with the isometric view, it's hard to tell what might just be a slight hill preventing interactivity, and the highlight mode doesn't show anything. Now, while Commandos 2 felt ahead of its time with its detailed isometric graphics, Origins is average when compared to its peers. The fidelity of textures is nice and detailed, and the lighting is indicative of the Unreal Engine 5 Lumen tech that it's using, but it doesn't do anything other games in the genre aren't doing better. By far my favorite aspect of the visuals are the variety of biomes and doodads populating each of the maps. One area that I found particularly lacking graphics-wise are the animations. Vehicles move about with no subtlety or finesse, looking like loosely animated cartoons in spots. Then there's the absence of proper transition animations with certain character actions. The lack of animation finesse coupled with all the glitches I experienced made Commandos Origins a rather lukewarm experience on the graphical and the technical end. The soundscape is hit or miss, much like the graphics. Commandos has taken a live orchestra approach with its soundtrack, but the compositions themselves lack the punchiness and melodic strength of the original games. The soundtrack comes off as you'd expected, like a military background music. Nothing bad, but not memorable either. It would have been nice to have the original soundtrack option via toggle, but I didn't expect that kind of thing. The voices of all 6 commandos are serviceable, but didn't particularly wow me. This reboot brings back those delightfully charming sound effects, thankfully. When zoomed in, buzzing of telephone poles or the engine of vehicles is heard, which makes for some good atmosphere. Overall, Commandos Origins packs a lot of strategic fun into a modern, nostalgic package. The 6 commando units offer a lot of gameplay variety, and the missions vary with distinct biomes and multiple ways to complete them. The game still has some bugs to iron out, but Commandos Origins comes recommended if you're a fan of methodical stealth and real-time tactics games.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.